My parents left me out of every family trip for 22 years. You just don't fit in. When I took my grandfather on his dream vacation, using his inheritance, they lost it. What happened next changed everything. Hey, Reddit. I'm 34 years old, and I just saw another set of photos from my parents' latest family vacation pop up on Facebook. My three siblings grinning with their spouses and kids, my parents in the center with their arms around everyone. Caption reading, Family is everything. You're blessed. You know what's missing from these pictures? Me. Just like every other family vacation for the past 22 years. This isn't some recent falling out or pandemic drama. This is a pattern that started when I was 13 and never stopped. But this time, I finally did something about it. And the fallout has been absolutely nuclear. Let me take you back to where this all began. December 2003. I was 13 years old, sitting at the top of the stairs with my backpack already packed. Inside were my swimsuit, sandals, sunscreen, and this disposable camera I'd bought with 3 weeks of allowance money. My parents were loading suitcases into our SUV, and my three siblings were running around screaming about the beach and palm trees. We were going to Cancun for Christmas, 2 weeks at an all-inclusive resort. I'd been excited for months. I came downstairs with my backpack, ready to help load the car. My mom stopped folding towels mid-motion and just stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Getting ready to go?" I said, confused by the question. My dad walked in from the garage carrying a cooler. He looked at me, then at my mom, then back at me. She sighed in that particular way that means she's annoyed but trying not to show it. "Sweetie, you're not coming on this trip." Just like that. No warning, no discussion, no preparation. Just a flat statement delivered like she was telling me we were out of milk. "Why not?" I asked, voice cracking. Dad set down the cooler. "There's not enough room in the car. Plus, someone needs to stay with Pops." Pops was my grandfather, my dad's father, who lived about 20 minutes away. "But it's Christmas," I managed to say. Mom was already zipping up another suitcase, pressing down on the lid with her knee. "You never really fit in on family trips anyway. You'll be more comfortable at Pops's house. He'll take good care of you." Never really fit in? I'd never been on a family trip to know if I fit in or not. 20 minutes later, I watched from my bedroom window as they loaded everything into the car. All 4 suitcases. The cooler, beach chairs, my siblings' excitement. Even our dog was going. I watched them load his crate into the back. The dog got to go to Cancun. I didn't. Mom never looked back at the house as they pulled away. Not once. That Christmas, I sat at Pops's house eating microwaved leftovers and watching the Weather Channel show tropical temperatures in Mexico, while Pennsylvania got 6 inches of snow. My siblings sent exactly 0 texts or photos during those 2 weeks. That was the first time. It wouldn't be the last. Summer 2005, they went to Europe. 3 weeks touring London, Paris, and Rome. Total cost, probably $18,000 for the 5 of them. They stayed in 4-star hotels and posted hundreds of photos of the Eiffel Tower, the Colosseum, and Big Ben. I spent those 3 weeks at Pops's house watching travel documentaries about those exact cities on the History Channel. The excuse that time? The trip is already so expensive, and you're so good at entertaining yourself at Pop's place. I was 15 and had just gotten an A+ on my European history project. Christmas 2006, they took a 10-day Caribbean cruise. The photos showed them snorkeling in crystal clear water, eating at the captain's table, and ziplining in Jamaica. I celebrated with Pops, eating reheated turkey and watching the ball drop on TV while he dozed in his recliner. Excuse: cruise cabins are small, and we could only get rooms for 4. The cruise line's website clearly showed they offered cabins for 5 people. I checked. Summer 2008, Yellowstone and the Grand Canyon. 2-week road trip with professional camping gear and a rented RV that slept 8 people. 8. Excuse: you get carsick, remember? This is a lot of driving. I'd gotten carsick once when I was 7 after eating 3 hot dogs and riding a roller coaster. New Year's 2010, mountain cabin in Aspen. Week-long skiing trip. They rented this massive 6-bedroom cabin with a hot tub and mountain views. Excuse: you don't ski, so you'd just be bored at the lodge by yourself. I'd asked for ski lessons for my birthday that year. They got me a $40 GameStop gift card instead. Summer 2011, Disney World. The whole family for 10 days, staying at one of those fancy resort hotels on the monorail line. I'd been obsessed with Disney as a kid. Excuse: theme parks are overwhelming for you. You'd have more fun at home. I was 20 years old and had specifically asked if I could come to this one. The answer was still no. Christmas 2013, Hawaii. 2 weeks on Maui during peak holiday season. The photos showed them at Luau's, snorkeling with sea turtles, watching the sunrise from Haleakala. Cost had to be at least $15,000. Excuse, the flights are so expensive and we can only afford 4 tickets. 2 months before that trip, they'd bought Brandon a used car for $8,000. Summer 2015, an Alaskan cruise. 7 days of glaciers, whales, and salmon dinners. Excuse, you're established in your career now, so you can take your own trips. I was 25, working an entry-level IT job with $2,400 in savings. Not exactly take my own Alaskan cruise money. The pattern was crystal clear. Every single major family vacation, every holiday trip, every summer adventure, my 3 siblings went. I stayed behind. And every single time, they had a different excuse ready. Budget's too tight to bring everyone. You're more of a homebody anyway. Someone needs to stay with Pops. You wouldn't enjoy it. You're too complicated to travel with. Here's what really twisted the knife, though. I saw the photos on Facebook. Every trip, hundreds of photos. My siblings parasailing in Cabo. My parents hiking in Switzerland. Everyone at Cinderella's castle. Professional family portraits on beaches I'd never see. And you know what the worst part was? They never even asked if I wanted to go. They just announced their trips and assumed I understood my role was staying home. By the time I was 16, I'd stopped packing hopeful backpacks. By 18, I stopped asking about trips. By 21, I barely flinched when they announced the next exotic destination I wouldn't be seeing. But here's the thing, Reddit. Those weekends and holidays with Pops? They accidentally gave me something they never intended. A real family. Pops lived in this small ranch house on the edge of town with a massive backyard full of fruit trees. The house always smelled like coffee and old books, and his ancient golden retriever Duke would greet me at the door every time like I was returning from war. What my parents never bothered to know was that Pops's house was packed every weekend I stayed there. My dad's brothers, Uncle Ray and Uncle Keith, would show up every Saturday with their families. Suddenly, this quiet house would fill with the kind of warmth and noise my own home never had. Uncle Ray would arrive early with groceries for a barbecue. Uncle Keith brought his kids, my cousins Natalie and Trevor, and Aunt Linda always showed up with homemade desserts that put any bakery to shame, and they included me in everything. Natalie was exactly my age. We became inseparable. She taught me how to skateboard. I helped her build a gaming PC. We'd stay up until 2 a.m. playing Super Smash Bros. And talking about everything. Trevor was 2 years younger and looked up to both of us like we were the coolest people alive. We played soccer in Pop's backyard until it got dark. We built blanket forts in the living room. We watched movies piled on the old couch with Duke sprawled across everyone's legs. My uncles taught me how to change oil, fix a leaky faucet, and grill a proper steak. All the things my dad never had time to show me. The difference was stark. My parents spent thousands taking my siblings to resorts, but my uncles spent their Saturdays teaching me life skills and actually listening when I talked. My siblings got postcard-perfect photos. I got real relationships. Uncle Ray never asked why I was there instead of on vacation with my parents. He'd just ruffle my hair when I arrived Friday evenings and say, "Hey kiddo, missed you. Help me set up the grill?" Pops was different though. He knew. I could see it in his eyes every time I showed up with my backpack. He knew my parents had left again. Knew they'd excluded me from another trip. But he never made me feel like a burden. He'd open the door and say, "There's my champion." And I knew he meant it. One night when I was about 16, we were sitting on his back porch after everyone else had left. Pops was smoking his pipe, something my dad hated but I found comforting. "Pops," I asked, "why do you think they never take me?" He didn't answer right away. Let the silence sit there between us, broken only by crickets and Duke's snoring. Finally, he said something I've never forgotten. "Family isn't just blood, Ian. Family is who chooses to stay, who chooses to include you, who makes you feel like you matter." He looked up at the stars. "Your uncles love you. Your cousins love you. I love you. That's family." He didn't directly answer my question, but he didn't need to. I already knew the answer. My parents didn't take me because they didn't want to. There was no deeper reason than that. And Pops, with his quiet wisdom, taught me that was okay, that I was okay. The years kept passing. The exclusions continued. But they didn't destroy me anymore. I was 18, then 22, then 26, and I still wasn't invited to family trips. I still saw the Instagram posts. I still noticed my siblings had thousands of shared memories I'd never be part of. But I had my own memories. I had Uncle Ray teaching me to change a transmission. I had late-night conversations with Natalie about life and dreams. I had Pops' Sunday dinners, where I always had a seat at the table. I stopped asking my parents why, stopped trying to fit into their perfect family photos, stopped needing their approval. I built my life around the family that actually wanted me there. College was mostly paid for by Pops and my uncles, pooling money together. My parents contributed $3,000 total across 4 years, roughly the cost of one of their vacation weeks. Every semester, Uncle Ray and Uncle Keith would split my tuition, never making a big deal about it. Family invests in family, Uncle Ray would say, when I tried to thank him for the thousandth time. After graduation, I got a job in IT consulting, found an apartment, and continued having Sunday dinners at Pops' house. My parents would show up at mandatory events, weddings, major birthdays, and act like our relationship was completely normal, like there weren't 22 years of systematic exclusion between us. And honestly, I let them act, because I genuinely didn't care anymore. Then I met Sophie. Sophie transferred to my company's office from our Seattle branch. We ended up on the same project team, became friends over late-night debugging sessions and complaints about management, then became something more. Our first real conversation happened during a system migration that went sideways at 11 p.m. on a Friday. We were the only two people still in the office, stress eating vending machine snacks and trying to fix code that someone else had written badly. She made a joke about how the previous developer must have been actively trying to sabotage us, and I laughed for the first time in weeks. "You're actually competent," she said around midnight after I'd fixed a particularly nasty bug. "Most people here just click buttons and hope for the best." "You too," I replied. "Usually my teammates just forward me their problems and disappear." She smiled. "Want to grab food? I know a diner that's open 24 hours. That diner became our spot. We'd meet there after rough days, after successful projects, whenever one of us needed to vent or celebrate. She told me about her family in Seattle, her parents who'd been married 35 years, her 3 brothers who still had weekly game nights, her grandmother who made the best lasagna in the world. She had this enormous, loud, loving family that she talked about with such genuine warmth that I found myself envious. Not bitter envious, just wishing I had something like that. Second date, she invited me to Sunday dinner at her parents' house. I was terrified. In my experience, family dinners were performative events where everyone pretended to be close while secretly keeping score. But Sophie's family was different. Her mom, Patricia, opened the door and immediately hugged me like I was her own son. "Sophie's told us so much about you. Come in, come in. I hope you're hungry." Her dad, Frank, shook my hand firmly and asked about my work with genuine interest, not the performative small talk my dad specialized in. Her brothers, James, Michael, and David, immediately started roasting each other to make me feel comfortable, pulling me into their banter without making me feel like an outsider. The dinner table was chaos in the best way. People talking over each other, passing dishes, laughing at inside jokes, but always explaining them so I didn't feel left out. Patricia asked me about my favorite foods. Frank wanted to know about my hobbies. The brothers argued about whether I'd be on their team for the post-dinner video game tournament. I'd been at their house for maybe 45 minutes, and I felt more included than I'd felt at my parents' house in 34 years. After dinner, Sophie and I walked to a nearby park. The sun was setting, painting everything orange and pink. "Your family is incredible," I told her. "They liked you," she said, smiling. "Mom already texted me asking when you're coming back." I laughed, but it came out a little choked. Sophie noticed immediately. "You okay?" And that's when I told her about the vacations, about being left behind, about Pops and my uncles being my real family, about 22 years of feeling like I was the one family member nobody wanted around. She stopped walking and just stared at me. Then she started crying, actually crying. Not polite tears, but big, shoulder-shaking sobs. "Ian, God, that's so cruel. How could they do that to you?" I shrugged, trying to play it off. "It's fine. I got used to it." "No," she said fiercely, wiping her eyes. "That's not fine. That's not something anyone should get used to. You deserved better. You deserved parents who wanted you around." She hugged me then, right there in the park, and I realized I'd been waiting my whole life for someone to validate that yes, what happened to me was wrong, that I wasn't being dramatic or oversensitive. Sophie made it clear she wanted to meet Pops and my uncles. The next Sunday, I brought her to Pops' house for our regular dinner. She charmed everyone immediately, helped Aunt Linda in the kitchen, asked Pops about his Navy days, played video games with Trevor and Natalie, and listened intently when Uncle Ray explained the difference between front-wheel and all-wheel drive. As we were leaving, Pops pulled me aside. "That girl's special. Don't let her get away." "I won't," I promised. Over the next 2 years, Sophie became part of my Sunday dinners, my weekends at Pops's house, my real family. She saw how my uncles treated me compared to how my parents did, and she got quietly furious on my behalf every time. They don't deserve you, she'd say after particularly bad interactions with my parents. When I proposed, I did it at Pops's house during a Sunday dinner. Got down on one knee in his backyard while everyone watched. Sophie said yes before I could finish my speech. Pops had tears in his eyes. Uncle Ray and Uncle Keith both hugged me after. Natalie screamed so loud the neighbors probably heard her. "You're already family," Uncle Ray said. "But now it's official." 2 years later, we got married. Pops was my best man, 78 years old and sharper than people half his age. Uncle Ray and Uncle Keith walked Sophie's mom down the aisle since her dad had passed years before. Natalie and Trevor were in the wedding party. My uncles and cousins filled half the venue. My parents and siblings were there too, sitting in the front row, smiling for the photographer. But when it came time for family photos, I called up Pops, my uncles, and my cousins. That was my family picture. I saw my mom's face, saw her jaw tighten and lips pressed together, but she didn't say anything. She never said anything. Life moved on. Sophie and I bought a house. Pops still came for Sunday dinners, though he was slowing down. My parents continued their vacation tradition, Bali, Dubai, the Maldives, always without me. The photos kept appearing on Facebook, each caption some variation of family first or making memories. I stopped clicking on them years ago. Then last April, Pops had a stroke. The call came at 6:30 a.m. Uncle Ray's voice was steady, but I could hear the fear underneath. "Ian, it's Dad. Hospital said we should come now." Pops had collapsed in his kitchen. By the time the ambulance arrived, he'd already slipped into unconsciousness. The doctors gave us the timeline we all dreaded. Days, maybe a week at most. My parents showed up at the hospital 3 hours after I called them. Brandon, Ashley, and Tyler arrived even later, looking uncomfortable and checking their phones. They stayed for 45 minutes, then left to get dinner and come back later. They didn't come back. Uncle Ray, Uncle Keith, Natalie, Trevor, Sophie, and I stayed at the hospital in rotating shifts, making sure Pops was never alone. We held his hands, told him stories, played his favorite music on somebody's phone. He woke up once, briefly, on day 3. His eyes found mine and he smiled, really smiled, and whispered, "You're a good man, Ian. Better than you know." Those were the last words he said to me. Pops passed away on a Tuesday morning at 6:47 a.m. Uncle Ray was holding one hand. I was holding the other. We'd been up all night. Uncle Keith and the cousins arrived 15 minutes later. My parents showed up 4 hours after that, after we'd already made most of the arrangements. The funeral was packed. People from his old job, his poker buddies, neighbors, church friends. Pops had touched so many lives. My dad gave the eulogy, talking about what a great father Pops had been. I wanted to laugh. When was the last time my dad had actually spent time with Pops when it wasn't a holiday obligation? After the service, the lawyer read the will. Pops had been meticulous about estate planning. His house went to Uncle Ray and Uncle Keith jointly. Various savings accounts and bonds were split among all his grandchildren, including my siblings. Then came the surprise. Pops had a separate account he'd been building for 40 years. Travel fund, he called it. In it was $127,000, and he'd left it entirely to me with specific instructions. The lawyer read them out loud. To my grandson Ian, who gave me his weekends when his parents gave him nothing but excuses. Take this money and see the world. Travel for both of us. You deserve every mile. The room went silent. My mom's face went red. My dad looked like he'd been slapped. Brandon spoke first. That's not fair. We're grandchildren too. Uncle Ray's response was immediate and sharp. When's the last time any of you spent a Saturday with Dad? When's the last time you called him just to talk? No one answered. I sat there holding the bank statements, reading Pops's handwritten note clipped to them. Ian, I watched you get left behind your whole life. This is for all the trips you should have taken. Make them count. Love, Pops. My parents tried to contest it. Spend $8,000 on a lawyer who told them exactly what I already knew. The will was airtight, Pops was of sound mind, and they had no case. The money was mine. 3 months after Pops died, I decided what to do with it. Pops had always talked about New Zealand. He'd spent hours showing me documentaries about it. The mountains, the beaches, the hiking trails, the Maori culture, the adventure sports. If I could do it all again, he'd say, pointing at the screen, I'd spend a month there, just exploring. Every inch of it. So I planned exactly that trip. A month in New Zealand, seeing everything Pops wanted to see. The full tour, Auckland, Rotorua, Queenstown, Milford Sound, Hobbiton, Wellington, Christchurch. Hiking, kayaking, scenic flights, cultural experiences, the works. Sophie and I spent weeks planning every detail. We researched the best trails, the most scenic viewpoints, the experiences Pops had mentioned over the years. I had a list of specific things he'd said he wanted to see: the glowworm caves, the geothermal pools, the mountains where they filmed Lord of the Rings, the fjords. Total cost $31,000. First-class flights because Pops always said if he ever flew that far, he wanted to be comfortable. Five-star hotels because at 78, he'd earned luxury. Helicopter tours over glaciers because he'd always wanted to see them from above. Private boat tours because he hated crowds. Wine tastings at vineyards because he appreciated good wine. Adventure activities because he'd been an adrenaline junkie his whole life. Everything Pops would have loved. And I brought him with me. Uncle Keith had spent weeks building this beautiful small wooden box, about the size of a jewelry box, with intricate carvings of mountains and trees. Inside was a portion of Pops's ashes. The rest were buried with Nana, his wife who'd passed 15 years earlier, but this part was coming with me. Our first stop was Auckland. We spent 3 days exploring the city, but the important moment came at Mount Eden. We hiked to the top at sunset, and at the summit, with the entire city spread out below us and the ocean stretching to the horizon, I found a quiet spot away from other tourists. "This one's for you, Pops," I said, scattering a tiny amount of ashes into the wind. "You always wanted to see the world. Now you're seeing it with me." Sophie took photos, me holding the wooden box with the sunset behind me, the city lights starting to twinkle below. It felt right. It felt like Pops was actually there. In Rotorua, we visited the geothermal areas. The sulfur smell, the boiling mud pools, the geysers shooting water into the air. Pops had been fascinated by volcanic activity. We did a Maori cultural experience, learning about the haka and traditional food prepared in earth ovens. I scattered more ashes at a quiet hot spring, remembering how Pops always said he wanted to visit places where the earth was alive. Queenstown was adventure central. We went skydiving, something Pops had done in his 20s and talked about for decades after. As I jumped out of that plane at 15,000 feet, free-falling over the most beautiful landscape I'd ever seen, I screamed, "This is for you, Pops!" into the wind. The instructor probably thought I was crazy. Sophie later told me she heard me through her own instructor's radio and started crying midair. We did the shot-over jet boat ride, speeding through narrow canyons, the boat spinning 360 degrees inches from rock walls. Pops had loved speed and danger. He would have absolutely loved this. At the top of Queenstown's Skyline gondola, overlooking the town and Lake Wakatipu, I scattered more ashes. The view was breathtaking. Mountains in every direction, the lake sparkling below, hang gliders soaring past. "You always said you wanted to see mountains that made you feel small," I told the wooden box. These are them. Milford Sound was magical. We took a private boat tour through the fjord, waterfalls cascading down steep cliffs on both sides. Seals lounged on rocks, dolphins swam alongside our boat, and the mountains reflected perfectly in the still water. Our guide pulled the boat over to a quiet spot, and I scattered ashes into the fjord. They floated on the dark water before disappearing into the depths. "The sea was calling to me," Pops used to say. He'd loved the ocean his whole life. In Hobbiton, we walked through the movie set Pops had been obsessed with. He'd watched the Lord of the Rings trilogy at least 50 times. We took photos at Bag End, at the Green Dragon Inn, in front of the party tree. At Sam's garden, I discreetly scattered a small amount of ashes into the soil. "You finally made it to the Shire, Pops," I whispered. We spent a week hiking. The Tongariro Alpine Crossing, 12 miles through volcanic terrain. The Rootburn Track, 3 days through mountains and forests. The Rob Roy Glacier Walk. Every summit, every viewpoint, I'd take out the wooden box, say something to Pops, and add a bit of him to that place. Sophie took hundreds of photos. Me holding the box at sunrise, the box on trail markers, silhouettes against mountain backdrops, at the glacier, at the beaches, at the lakes. Every photo told the story. I was sharing this journey with Pops. The final scatter was at Cape Reinga, the northernmost tip of New Zealand. According to Maori legend, this is where spirits depart to the afterlife. It felt fitting. We stood on the cliff watching the Tasman Sea and Pacific Ocean collide, waves crashing against rocks hundreds of feet below. "Thank you," I said, as I scattered the last of the ashes. "Thank you for 22 years of Sunday dinners. Thank you for making me feel like I belonged somewhere. Thank you for showing me what real family looks like. I love you, Pops." Sophie was crying. I was crying. The wooden box was finally empty, but it didn't feel sad. It felt right. Pops had traveled with me. We'd done it together. On the flight home, exhausted and sunburned and happy, I went through all the photos. Picked the best 30, the ones that captured the beauty of the trip and the presence of that wooden box in every important moment. When we got back, I created a photo album and posted a selection to Facebook. 30 photos of the trip of a lifetime. The caption read, "Fulfilling Pops's dream of seeing New Zealand." Used his travel fund exactly how he wanted, to explore the world he loved so much. This trip was for both of us. Miss you every day. Thank you for 22 years of making me feel like I belonged somewhere. Family first, travel goals. New Zealand. I tagged Sophie, Uncle Ray, Uncle Keith, Natalie, and Trevor. Deliberately didn't tag my parents or siblings. The post went up on a Saturday evening. Within 2 hours, I had 300 likes and dozens of comments from friends, co-workers, and distant relatives saying how beautiful it was, how touching the tribute was, how amazing the photos looked. Sunday morning at 8:47 a.m., my mom called. I let it go to voicemail. She called again at 8:51, then 8:55. Then my dad called. Then Brandon, then Ashley. All within 15 minutes. Finally, I answered when Uncle Ray called. "Hey buddy, heads up," he said. "Your parents are losing their minds about your Facebook post. They've been blowing up everyone's phones since last night. Wanted to give you warning before they show up at your house." "What's their problem?" I asked, though I already knew. "They're saying you humiliated them by not including them in the trip, that you weaponized your grandfather's death. Your mom told my wife you're flaunting wealth while they struggle." I almost laughed. "They struggle? They just got back from Santorini 2 weeks ago." Yeah, I reminded her of that. She hung up on me. Sophie came into the kitchen and raised her eyebrows. I mouthed, "My parents?" And she rolled her eyes. "Ian," Uncle Ray said carefully, "they're probably going to try some kind of intervention or confrontation. You need to be prepared for that." "Let them come," I said. "I've got 22 years of receipts ready to go." They showed up at my house at 6:30 p.m. Sunday. All 5 of them. Mom, Dad, Brandon, Ashley, and Tyler. Standing on my doorstep looking like they'd coordinated their outfits for maximum dramatic effect. Sophie answered the door. "Well, this is a surprise. Ian didn't mention you were visiting. We need to talk to our son," my mom said, voice tight. "Family business." "I am family," Sophie said coolly. "Legally and everything." I came to the door. "What do you want?" My dad pushed past Sophie into our living room without being invited. The rest followed. Sophie and I exchanged looks. This was going to be ugly. Dad turned to face me, arms crossed. "That post, that stunt on Facebook. Take it down." "No," I said simply. "You humiliated us." Mom's voice was shrill. "Everyone is asking why you went to New Zealand without your family. People think we're terrible parents." "Well," I said calmly, "that's because you are." Ashley stepped forward. "That's not fair. Mom and Dad did their best." "Their best?" I looked at her. "Ashley, how many family vacations have you been on?" "I don't know. A lot." "What does that matter?" "Guess how many I've been on?" Silence. "0, I said. "In 34 years of life, I have been on exactly 0 family vacations. Because they never invited me." Brandon shifted uncomfortably. "That's not how it was." "Then how was it, Brandon?" "Because from where I stood, or rather, where I sat at Pops's house, every time you guys went somewhere, it looked a lot like systematic exclusion." My dad's face was red. "You're making it sound deliberate. There were always reasons. Budget, space, logistics." "Right," I interrupted. "Let's talk about those reasons. Christmas 2003, Cancun. You said there wasn't room in the car, but somehow there was room for Duke. The dog went to Cancun, but not me." Mom opened her mouth, but I kept going. "Summer 2005, Europe. 3 weeks, probably $18,000 total. You said the trip was already too expensive, but 2 months later, you bought Brandon that $4,000 gaming computer for his birthday." "That's different," Brandon started. "Christmas 2006, 10-day Caribbean cruise. You said cabins were too small, but I saw the photos. You had 2 cabins. One for you and Dad, one for the 3 kids. You literally had space. You just didn't want me there." "Ian," my mom said weakly, "we thought you were happier with Pops. Then why didn't you ever ask me? Why didn't you ever say, 'Hey, Ian, would you rather come to Disney World or stay at Pops's house?' You just decided for me. Every single time." Tyler finally spoke. He was 28 now, the youngest, and he'd been quiet this whole time. "We thought it was normal. Like that's just how it was with you." "It wasn't normal," I said, louder than I intended. It was abandonment, systematically choosing to exclude one kid while including all the others. That's not logistics. That's favoritism. Sophie stood beside me, hand on my arm. They took 22 years of trips without you. You took one trip to honor the man who actually showed up for you. Why is that a problem? Because, my mom said, her composure cracking. That money should have been split between all the grandchildren. It's not fair that he got everything. And there it was. The real issue. Not that they'd excluded me my whole life, but that Pops had given me the money they felt entitled to. You want to talk about fair? I walked to my office and grabbed a folder I'd prepared, somehow knowing this conversation would happen. Inside were printed receipts and rough cost estimates. I spread them on the coffee table. Christmas 2003, Cancun. 2 weeks all-inclusive. Approximately $8,500. Europe 2005, $18,000. Caribbean Cruise 2006, $12,000. Yellowstone 2008, $6,000. Aspen 2010, $9,500. Disney World 2011, $8,000. Should I keep going? I pulled out my phone and opened the calculator. I tracked every major trip through social media posts and your own bragging. In 22 years, you spent roughly $147,000 on family vacations. I was invited to exactly 0 of them. The room was silent. Pops left me $127,000. Still less than what you spent taking everyone else on trips. So don't talk to me about fair. My dad was the first to recover. We're your parents. We don't owe you. You're right. I cut him off. You don't owe me anything. And I don't owe you anything either. Not my travel photos, not my money, not my time, and definitely not an explanation for honoring the man who actually loved me. We love you, my mom said, tears starting. No, you don't. You love the idea of looking like good parents. You love the idea of a complete family for Facebook photos. But you don't love me. If you did, you would have taken me to at least one of those 20-plus trips. Brandon's voice was small. I remember asking once why you weren't coming to Disney. Dad said you didn't want to go. I never said that, I replied. I begged to go to Disney. I asked multiple times. The answer was always no. Ashley was crying now. We didn't know. We were just kids. You were kids, I agreed. But they weren't. They made a choice every single time. And it wasn't bad luck or circumstances or budget issues. It was a deliberate choice to exclude me while including everyone else. My dad tried one more time. So what? You're going to punish us forever? Never forgive us? I'm not punishing anyone. I'm just done pretending we're a close family. We can be cordial at necessary gatherings. I'll show up to weddings and funerals. But don't expect me to act like we have a relationship when you spent 22 years proving we don't. What about holidays? My mom asked desperately. I'll be spending them with Sophie's family, and with Uncle Ray, Uncle Keith, Natalie, and Trevor, the people who actually wanted me around. Tyler stood up abruptly. This is crazy. You're destroying the family over old hurt feelings. Tyler, I said, and my voice was so calm it surprised even me. I'm not destroying anything. There was nothing there to destroy. You guys just never noticed because you were too busy making memories without me. They left shortly after that. Mom crying, Dad angry, my siblings confused. Sophie closed the door behind them and immediately hugged me. You okay? She asked. Yeah, I said, and I meant it. I really am. The aftermath was predictable. My mom sent a long email about how hurt they all were, how I was being unfair, how family should forgive and move forward. I didn't respond. Brandon and Ashley both reached out separately. We met for coffee, just the 3 of us, and had the first honest conversation we'd ever had as adults. I remember things differently now, Brandon admitted. Like, I remember being excited for trips, but I never thought about why you weren't there. I just accepted it. They told us you preferred staying with Pops, Ashley said. We believed them because they're our parents. Why would they lie? Because it was easier than admitting they were playing favorites, I said. We talked for 3 hours. They apologized, really apologized. Not the non-apology my parents had tried. They asked about my childhood, about what it was like being left behind, about Pops and my uncles. For the first time ever, they actually listened. Tyler still sided with my parents, sent me a message saying I was being dramatic and needed to get over it. I blocked him. The Facebook post stayed up. Eventually, my parents unfriended me, which was fine. Several relatives reached out privately saying they'd always wondered why I wasn't in family photos. A few admitted they'd thought it was strange, but didn't want to pry. Uncle Ray called a week later. Your dad tried calling me, asking me to talk sense into you, Told him he had 22 years to show you he cared and never did. That's on him, not you. Sophie's family officially adopted me as their own. Her mom sends me birthday cards addressed to our son Ian. Her dad asks for my help with projects. Her brothers include me in their group chats. This is what family actually feels like. As for my parents, they've tried a few more times to mend fences, which really means convince me to pretend nothing happened. They suggested family counseling. I declined. They offered to take me on their next trip. I laughed and said no thanks. The truth is, I don't hate them. I just don't need them anymore. Spent too many years needing their approval, needing their inclusion, needing their love. I'm done needing anything from them. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.